Hello and welcome back on my channel. Thank you so much for joining me again. If you're new here or new to the series, hi, my name is Cece. What we're doing today is unboxing the day number 8 in the Once Upon a Book Club Advent Calendar, 12 days of book club mass. I know it is already March and it seems a little bit weird to unbox a Christmas thingy, but we only received this box in January, so we have been unboxing it ever since, and who cares really? It's gifts and it's short stories. We're just doing this. So what I'm doing is I will be reading you the short story, and at one point in the story there will be a printed post-it in the story. It's usually way towards the end. I think here we have another 3-4 pages before the end, and when we get to this printed post-it, then we get to open up the gift. Today it's a really small gift, and I feel like already disappointed in a way, because I don't have high hopes that this is something amazing. But let's see. Hopefully the short story is. Today is going to be a long one, so let's get cracking. Day 8. Little Treasures by Juliet Madison. Lily Pebbleton's shoulders clenched as she drove down the main street of Seekers Hill, the familiar sights catapulting memories throughout her mind like shooting stars. It wasn't just a visit this time to say hello, it was to say goodbye. Mom, do you think great-grandma's still around, like her ghost or something? Lily's almost 12-year-old daughter, Sienna, often asked deep questions at unexpected times. I'm not sure. I don't think I could ever imagine Grandma Katie as a ghost. It just feels so weird that she's gone. I know, sweetie. Lily turned her head and offered an understanding smile to her only child. Well, I do like to think that some part of her might still be around, you know, keeping an eye on us. Mom, look out! Sienna pointed ahead. Lily floored the brakes. An old lady with a walking stick was crossing the road. Sorry, she called out, but the old lady kept walking with eyes straight ahead, seemingly oblivious. I think I've been driving far too long. My brain needs a rest. Lily shook her head. We better head straight to the house. She turned the corner and drove past the small town's park, where she'd once spent many a summer afternoon and occasionally a moonlit night. A few minutes later she pulled into the driveway of her mother's house. She steered the vehicle and the caravan that was towed behind it to the right side of the house, which was once home to a gathering of shrubs, until her mother cleared the space, so Lily would have somewhere to park her portable home on the occasions she visited. 5, 4, 3, 2... Lily! Sienna! Joanna Pebbleton approached the car, waving with a relieved smile. 1. Right on time. Her mother had clearly been waiting eagerly near the front door. Lily opened the car door and eased her tired body out, stretching her arms up high and yawning. Sienna had already leapt out, wrapping her arms around her grandmother. Oh, I've missed you, gorgeous girl. Joanna hugged her tightly and wiggled side to side. When they let go, Sienna's eyes were glossy, but she blinked quickly and put on a smile. Lily's heart fluttered. Her little girl was reaching such an emotional age and now had to process the grief and realization that they could no longer visit great-grandma Katie, except at Seekers Hill Cemetery after the service on Thursday. Mom! Lily stood on the spot with outstretched arms. Her mother inched towards her, a shaky smile on her face as though it might crumble at any second. Lily stepped forward and embraced her with a knowing firmness, a small offer of support, but also with a need for support, if she herself might crumble with sadness. Joanna sniffed and wiped her eyes. Let's get you ladies inside, out of this chilly weather. Winter has surely set in. She ushered them inside the house that Lily had grown up in. Who would have thought that a few months ago I had the aircon going full blast and now the heating is working overtime? That's Seekers Hill for ya, Lily remarked. The small Australian town was nestled on the crest of a hill, exposed to the northern sunshine in summer but shadowed by a mountain that led up to a grand temple at its peak, where many travelers, or seekers as they were known, visited the some sacred downtime, healing and self-reflection. The sound of the kettle clicking made Lily turn to face the kitchen, where her sister Emma was gathering some mugs. "Just in time," she said. "Hot chocolate and tea awaits." She prepared the beverages before allowing Lily to give her a brief hug. Named after her grandmother's middle name, Emma wasn't as fussed about displaying affection or showing emotions. She preferred to keep busy and focused on the task at hand. Lily saw it pinched and on siding another mug on the shelf that would not be in use today. World's Best Grandma was displayed in bold font, with an illustration of a heart-shaped medal and the number 1 on it. Lily had given it to her grandmother when she was about Sienna's age. Emma set a couple of mugs down on the cracked and faded coasters that lay on the coffee table. Lily brought the other 2, steam rising and the mixture of warm scents bringing comfort and familiarity. "Now, what can I help with?" Lily asked her mother once they all sat and sipped their hot drinks. "For Thursday?" Her mother shook her head. "Nothing, my dear. Everything's all set and taken care of. Just bring a memento or something to symbolize Katie, if you like, to place on her." Lily nodded quickly so her mother wouldn't have to say coffin. Like she couldn't say funeral and pertained to all the arrangements being for Thursday instead. "So," Joanna cleared her throat. "Are you staying just for the week?" Lily nodded again. "And after that, where are you off to?" Lily had been living on the road in their cute and cozy caravan, homeschooling her daughter for the past 3 years and running her social media management business. Lily's shoulders tensed again. "Oh," she flicked her hand, "maybe down south. I'm not sure yet." Truth was, she didn't know. Their freedom and adventures had been wonderful and had given Sienna many new learning experiences in all the different places they'd visited. But now she was becoming tired of being on the move. And although Sienna never complained, she knew she was too. Her daughter needed some stability and regular friendships, especially as she was approaching adolescence. But Lily couldn't settle on where to call home. Somehow, Seeker's Hill seemed a step back in time instead on the forward momentum she so desperately needed. Lily woke to the sound of birds, followed by the television. The unnatural noise of fake advertising voices, chirpy music, and cartoon shenanigans got her out of bed and into the living room where Sienna was giggling in front of the large screen. "Remember when I used to watch these shows, Mom?" A wide smile graced her face. Lily nodded. "You've grown up since then." "I know, but I wish we had a TV in the caravan." "There's the iPad." "I know, but it's not the same. Anyway, there's a movie on at 12 o'clock I want to watch." Lily checked the time, 9:45 a.m. She'd slept in. "Don't you want to come and have a wander around town with me after breakfast?" "Nah, it's all the same as before. And I'm cozy here on the couch and Grandma's making chocolate chip cookies." "Okay, my dear, as long as you get some activity later today." Lily shook her head. First day here and she wanted to be a couch potato. Lily entered the kitchen where her mother was spooning cookie dough onto a tray. "Breakfast?" Lily joked. "I saved you some scrambled eggs. Just give them a little heat on the stove. Didn't want to wake you. Hope you don't mind that we already ate." "A chance to sleep in? Works for me." "Thanks, Mom." Lily gave her mother a peck on the cheek and switched on the stove to warm the eggs. "Am I at work?" Joanna nodded. "I'll pop into the pharmacy on my way through town." Warmth filled the kitchen when Joanna opened the oven door, sliding the tray of cookies in. "They're going to smell delicious. I better eat my eggs quickly so I can have a cookie before I go for a walk." Lily sat at the table and ate her breakfast, checking her phone messages. An auto reply would take care of all work-related emails this week. Her social media posts had all been written and scheduled for her clients, and she felt weird not having anything to do but scroll through Facebook. A text message beeped. "Sorry for the late reply. Was out on Dad's boat for a few days. I'm sorry to hear about your grandma. Hope Sienna's okay. I'll see her in 3 weeks when we arrange somewhere to meet." Sienna spent a long weekend with her father every month up on the north coast where he worked on his dad's boating business, having changed from being a Seeker's Hill car mechanic most of his life, until 3 years ago when he decided that this town and she was no longer for him. Lily sent a brief thank you and told him that Sienna was okay and that she'd get back to him at the end of the week about their next arrangements. After getting changed into yoga pants, running shoes, a long-sleeved top, and lamb's wool linen jacket, Lily grabbed her over-the-shoulder handbag. "You sure you don't mind me going exploring on my own?" she asked her mother. "Of course not, love. You probably need some long overdue time to yourself, and Sienna needs some long overdue spoiling by Grandma. Isn't that right, sweetie?" "Yes, bring it on," Sienna replied, and Lily chuckled. "Okay, don't eat too many cookies, guys." Lily closed the door behind her and tightened the scarf around her neck as a gush of crisp air sent goosebumps tingling across her skin. She walked briskly down Petal Road and turned the corner into Main Street, passing the mechanic's garage where her ex had worked. She used to wait for him out front, all excited and giddy after school, and a few years later they were married with a baby on the way. He was all she'd ever known in the way of relationships, but now, after 3 years on her own, she wondered if there was ever anything more for her in the future. She couldn't hide behind motherhood responsibilities forever for fear of getting hurt. She knew she would have to seek new horizons eventually, and after so long her heart craved something special. She stopped outside the general store and smiled at their cute window display. Fluffy toys making a mess in a pretend kitchen with flour spilled everywhere and cereal grains tumbling from a cardboard packet. A teddy bear hid under a table eating a packet of potato chips. Rob and Sue, the owners, always managed to create quirky and amusing displays to bring a smile to the locals and the tourists when they lumbered in on the large buses to visit the renowned art gallery in town. She glanced across the road at the Mistletoe, the town's one and only pub. Fairy lights were strung around the perimeter. No matter what time of the year it was, they never took them down. Seekers Hill was definitely homely, but was it still home for her? The old lady she'd seen yesterday crossing the road stepped out of the pharmacy, a large paper bag in her hand, probably filled with a range of medications one might need at that age. She caught her eye and the lady smiled. "You visiting, dear?" the lady asked. "No, yes, sort of," Lily replied. "I grew up here. I'm staying with my mom for my grandmother's funeral." The lady dropped her paper bag and Lily rescued it for her and handed it back. "Catherine Nottingham?" she asked. "Yes," Lily's eyes widened. "You knew her?" "Only a short while, dear." The lady looked into the distance. "I moved here a couple of years ago to live with my son and his family. They insisted, instead of putting me into a retirement home. That's what my mother did for my grandma, and it looks like you're nowhere near in need of a retirement home," Lily said with a smile. The lady blushed. "You're too kind. But by mid-afternoon, I'll be out of action for the rest of the day. I only have a few good hours in me each day before my body tries to call it quits, and my window of opportunity is getting less each day." Lily nodded in understanding. "Gotta make the most of the hour, every hour then, I guess." "Exactly, dear." She looked deep into Lily's brown eyes with her Caribbean blue ones. "Don't waste a single moment. Life is so precious. You realize that when you get to my age." She turned to walk away, then pointed a bony finger at her with a smile. "You make the most of it. You hear?" she said, then walked further along the sidewalk. "I will," Lily called out. Surroundings blurred as she absorbed the woman's words and, lost in her own thoughts, vaguely noticed a man striding calmly yet purposely past her and into a shop a little further up. She could only see him from behind, but his walk seemed familiar. A little dip to the left with each step. "Lily, is that you?" Thoughts dissipated from her mind and she turned to the source of the voice, Mrs. Ambrosia, the wife of the town's pharmacist. "Athena, lovely to see you." The woman kissed each of Lily's cheeks with a loud squelch. "Ha! Oh, beautiful Katharina, gone too soon. I'm so sorry, Bella." She had always insisted on adding an A to the end of her grandma's name. "Why end with an E when you can end with an A?" she used to say in her voluptuous Greek accent, even though most people who'd known her grandma had called her Katie. "Thank you. She'll be missed, that's for sure. Well, I'll see you on Thursday, if not before. I have to get back to my sewing. My daughter's wedding dress awaits." She raised her hands in the air in excitement. "Can't wait to see it. Have fun." Lily smiled, then stepped through the entrance of the pharmacy, the antique bell on the back of the door jingling. She eyed Emma behind the counter as she passed a package to a customer. Emma held up her hand in a quick wave. "How's your day?" Lily asked. "Good, I guess. Same as usual. Did you want to catch up over lunch? What time do you get a break?" Emma turned her wrist and glanced at her watch. "About an hour. Meet at the Hungry Hippo?" "Sure." Lily smiled and looked around the store. Everything was exactly where it had always been, and the faint scent of disinfectant and medicine hung in the air. I better leave you to it. Don't want you to get in trouble with the boss. Hi, Mr. Ambrosia. Lily waved to the pharmacist behind the dispensary, who was on the phone. Lily, he held his hand over the landline phone. If I wasn't talking to a doctor I'd been trying to get a hold of for ages, I would come and give you a hug. I'll save you one, okay? He winked and got back to his call. Lily returned to the crisp morning air and continued her wander. In a town like this, despite being small, one simple walk could take hours on account of all the stopping to chat. She passed Blossom's boutique, deciding to have a look at their clothing range after lunch to see if they had anything nice for Sienna's birthday coming up in a couple of months, and then stopped outside her favorite shop. The intricate gold flourishing of the letters on the sign always made her feel something magical. Little treasures, books, gifts, antiques. She used to visit the shop with Grandma Katie after school as a young child, when her mother worked till 5 p.m. at the art gallery. She loved their special 2 hours together, shopping, eating ice cream, playing in the park, but mostly visiting the town's loveliest store. And the books. Katie had her own collection at home, of course, but she always said one can never have too many books, and books are an investment in your mental well-being. Lily remembered many winter afternoons curled up with a hot chocolate and many summer nights on the back deck as Grandma Katie read to her, and later Emma, story after story. The Magic Faraway Tree, Little Women, The Secret Garden, they were her favorites, and now Lily's too. With a smile of anticipation, she pushed open the door, also with a jingling bell that seemed compulsory in small town shops, and was met with comforting warmth emanating from the gas fireplace, made to look like real timber was burning within. Her chest rose as she breathed in deeply, exhaling with a sigh and closing her eyes for a brief moment as memories came flooding back. You look like you've been holding your breath till now. Can I get you a warm drink, a good book, oxygen mask? She opened her eyes and her heart skipped a little beat. Bradley, is that you? She couldn't believe her eyes. The once bulky and scuffy football player from high school was now taller and leaner, with a short, trendy beard and black hair combed stylish to one side with a subtle flourish as though to match the sign out front. It sure is. Long time no see, Lily. He stepped out from behind the counter. I thought you were living in New Zealand. He had flown out with his family after high school ended, when his burgeoning football career was cut short due to an injury on his left leg that never healed. I moved back here after one too many earthquakes. He winked. Actually, my mom, her memory is not so good anymore. His gaze lowered and he scratched his head. Dad brought her back here to visit a year ago, and it was the best he'd seen her in a long time, so he decided to move back. Her memories from this place seemed to hold longer than any others these days, so we thought it might be the best for her. Lily nodded slowly in sympathy. And you decided to come too? Yep, I'd hardly spent any time with her once school finished, and I was off gallivanting, doing various things as one does in the 20s, but now, well, there's no knowing when she might stop remembering other things, like him and his father. So I wanted to be with her as much as I could. Lily's heart warmed. That's really special. She held his gaze for a moment and saw something similar to what she felt. Grief. Only for him it was in reverse. He was grieving for what was to come rather than for what had happened. Anyway, he clapped his hands together. I'll let you browse the shop, but first a couple of things. He reached across the counter. Oh, Lily peered forward and he handed her a flyer. Poetry night. Share your words with us. All welcome. You'll still be in town this Friday, I hope? Lily nodded. Well, we will. My daughter and I. We're here for my Katie's funeral, I heard. I'm so sorry. I remember her from way back. Lily lowered her gaze this time, then glanced back up. I'll see how I feel, and hopefully we can make it. My girl, Sienna, she loves writing poems. Maybe she'd like to come along. Maybe she'd like to share one with us. Open mic. Except we won't have a microphone, just natural acoustics. He smiled. I'll let her know. Thanks. She slipped the flyer into the pocket of her bag. One more thing. Bradley beckoned her towards the counter with a curl of his finger. She stepped closer, peering into the little antique-looking wooden box he had opened. Are you up for a challenge? His eyes twinkled with secret. Always. Curiosity tingled up her spine. Choose an envelope. He gestured to the box, filled with an array of wax-sealed envelopes. She hovered her hand over them for a moment as though choosing a lucky dip like she used to at the fair as a kid. This one, she plucked one out. What is it? Open it. She lifted off the seal and pulled out a piece of folded paper. Treasure hunt. Find one of little treasures by following the clues. Each will lead you to a new clue until the final one, which will grant you a wonderful gift. Good luck. Your first clue. When you make a wish, sometimes they come true. Ha! How cool, Lily remarked. So I just figure out the clue and then I'll find another clue and it keeps going on and on until I find a gift of some kind? Bradley nodded. The clues are hidden both in this shop and around town, and you may have to know a bit about Seeker's Hill to solve the clues, so I think you've got a good chance. Hopefully I can solve it by Sunday when we leave. Hope so, he smiled. He opened his mouth as though to speak again, but closed it. She tucked the envelope in her bag and browsed the store. Glossy new books, delicate old books, the colorful kids' corner with a child-sized velvet armchair, the gift table, a shelf of antiques, and quirky little treasures, and sparkly book-themed wind chimes and mobiles hanging from the ceiling. One could spend hours in here, and in the past, she had. When you make a wish, sometimes they come true. The clue repeated itself in her mind until an image flashed behind her eyes. Aha! She turned to the door, then glanced back at Bradley. I'll be back later. I have a mission to accomplish. Lily dashed across the pedestrian crossing towards the park. It has to be here. There's no other option, she concluded as she entered the park and followed the winding pathways towards the landscaped garden area. She walked past the cute old bird bath, the town's war memorial, and stopped at the wishing tree. Hundreds of tiny wishes dangling from its branches. A purpose-built stand with a weatherproof lid housed the gift tags, string, and pens for visitors to write wishes and hang them from the tree. The tradition began when Lily was a child and formed a special part of her memories, embedded into her mind from growing up in Seeker's Hill. There were probably about 100 of her own wishes up there, if they still existed, or had washed away with the rain over the time. Some had come true and others not. The one about wishing for her father to not be ill belonged to the latter. They'd had time to say goodbye at least, though it hadn't made it any easier. But years later, the wish for a kiss from her now ex had definitely come true, along with a whole lot more than she bargained for. Her mind returning to the task at hand, she scanned the tags to see if any of them stood out. Would the next clue be written on one of them? Or perhaps it was hidden somewhere else nearby? She had a quick look around the trunk, deep into the crevices where it united with the branches, and up high among the leaves. She ran her hand along a row of wishes, searching and reminiscing at the same time, as though the tree was an instrument and they were the keys to a melody from long ago. She reached up higher, repeating the same process along other branches until one caught her eye, a darker color tag. She tugged at it a little to bring it closer into view and grinned at the little treasure's business card. Yes! She tugged it off the branch, turned the card over and read the message squeezed on it in a small writing. Your wish has come true. Time for the next clue. They say the book is always better than the film, but who doesn't like to watch a good movie? What would you like to see? This isn't much of a challenge, Bradley, she thought, chuckling to herself. She tucked the clue into the envelope and headed towards the cinema. The historic building with its tall grand arches greeted her with nostalgia. She stood in front of it with renewed awe, having never fully appreciated its majestic nature until she was older and had left town. Save Our Cinema signs were stuck on the windows, along with fundraising ventures to participate in. She guessed that with everyone streaming movies these days, visits to the cinema were not as popular as they once were. Seeker's Hill Cinema relied mostly on tourists to keep afloat, along with renting out the half hall for local dance, drama, and martial art classes. It would be sad to see it close down, and she hoped it would be able to remain open. Maybe she and Lily could watch a movie this week to have some reprieve from recent events and to give the cinema a boost, if only a small contribution. She walked up the steps and the front doors opened. Perfect timing, said the young woman. Are you here for our midday screening? Oh, I'm not actually. I'm just going on a treasure hunt, reminiscing. The woman tilted her head to the side. Sure, come on in. And if you do feel like some lunchtime entertainment, tickets are only $8 on Tuesday. Lily smiled and nodded. She stepped into the foyer, the carpet of zigzag red and green patterns still as jarring as it always been, but also strangely comforting. Her nostrils flared in eagerness to absorb the delicious popcorn scent, and once again she was transported back in time. She'd had her first kiss here. Matthew Baxter had asked her to the movies after school one day, and she'd been so nervous she wasn't able to eat the popcorn he'd bought to share with her. Throughout the whole movie she'd been wondering, when? And finally, as the credits rolled, he leaned over and bam! Milestone moment of adolescence done and dusted. She chuckled at the memory and wondered how many first kisses this place had welcomed since. Back to the clue. She eyed the blackboard next to the box office, which displayed in handwritten chalk each film and the times for the day. Something new, something old, and something educational. It was so different to the fancy cinemas with digital screens and ticket kiosks with only online bookings. Here, everything was still done the old-fashioned way. What if the next clue was hidden in code on the blackboard? She reread the screenings and worked her brain over time, but nothing jumped out. You can take a timetable if you like and come back when it suits you to watch something, the woman suggested, pointing to a display of brochures on the wall nearby. Sure, thanks. She plucked out a movie timetable flyer and gave it a quick glance, then glanced back at the Perspex brochure stand. What would you like to see? I'd like to see a clue, she muttered to herself. She rifled through the flyers, and right at the back was a different flyer folded in half. She opened it and voila! You found it. Your next clue is: your fortune awaits. Are you hungry for it? Don't settle for small in life. Ask for something bigger. Maybe the clues were going to get gradually more challenging after all. She couldn't think where to go for the next one. Fortune teller? Were there any psychics or tarot readers in town? The only one she knew of was at the monthly fair, but the next fair wasn't until in 2 weeks' time, and she wouldn't be here then. Her phone beeped. Are you ready for lunch? I've only got until 1 p.m. Oops, she's been so wrapped up in her memories and the challenge, she'd completely forgotten to meet Emma. On my way, she texted back. Lily arrived at the cafe and took a seat at the table Emma had secured near the heater. Sorry, she showed her envelope and the clues and explained what she was up to. I hope, whatever the gift is, that it's worth all the effort traipsing around town. It's a good distraction, at least. I guess so. Anyway, how's business? Emma asked, always known to get straight to the point. They chatted about life as they ate their lunch, pumpkin soup and sourdough garlic bread, and how they had never gotten around to setting up the business they were going to do together before Lily decided to travel around Australia in a caravan. Although Emma had expressed that she was happy for Lily to do something for herself and her daughter, Lily knew that her sister always held some resentment that she didn't keep her end of the bargain. They hadn't even decided on the type of business, just something they could establish locally to make their mark on the town and perhaps leave a legacy for future generations. But as Lily had explained at the time, life had other plans and she needed to see what else there was in life beyond Seeker Hill. And that she had done, but true fulfillment still seemed elusive. When the meals were finished, a young waitress brought coffee to their table. Thanks, Lily said, eyeing the bonus on the side of the plate, a fortune cookie. Thanks. Lily looked at her sister and Emma's eyes widened. Fortune? Lily laughed. Could it be? She checked the clue again. It did mention fortune and also mentioned hungry, and they were eating at the Hungry Hippo. Emma shrugged. Let's find out. They both opened the cookies and read the tiny fortune, but neither hinted at another clue, just the standard fortune cookie quotes. The clue said to ask for something bigger. Does that mean I have to? Lily gestured to the counter. Emma shrugged again. Worth a shot. Lily straightened up in her chair and caught eyes with the waitress, curling her hand to ask her to come to the table. Do you have any bigger fortune cookies? She felt ridiculous asking the question, and one of the customers looked at her with a frown as if she was being greedy and picky. No, they only come in that size, I'm afraid, but I can. An older waitress passing by nudged the younger waitress. Oh, actually, yes, we do. Do you have a special voucher? Her eyes widened. Only this. Lily held out the flyer with a clue. Ha, I was wondering if anyone would come in and ask. We've been waiting so long, I almost forgot about it. She went out back and returned with a larger cookie. There you go, on the house. Thank you. Lily cracked open the cookie, both ladies behind the counter watching her eagerly until a new customer came in to keep them occupied. What does it say? Emma asked, and Lily read it out. Well done. Hope you enjoyed your cookie. Next clue just for you. Always walk through life with a thirst for knowledge. Emma's brow narrowed. Are you supposed to ask for another drink now or something? Lily raised her hands. Surely they wouldn't be too close in the one place. Probably not. Emma stood. I better get back to work anyway. Okay, see you tonight. Lily stood and they paid for their meals. And when Emma returned to work, Lily had noticed a small sigh from her sister when she pushed open the door to the pharmacy. Maybe she could encourage her to go on a few adventures around the country herself. Break up the monotony of small-town life. She clearly needed the change. The next day, Lily managed to coax Sienna off the couch and into town along with her mother, but Sienna decided they should all go to the cinema. She's making up for lost screen time by the looks of it, Joanna whispered to Lily. Lily nodded with a sigh. Oh well, it's only for a week, and I was thinking yesterday it'd be good to support the cinema. The three of them sat with popcorn and lemonade for the modern-day version of Mary Poppins, walking out of the cinema afterwards singing Let's Go Fly a Kite, and Sienna skipping across the park. When they'd finished eating takeaway sandwiches, Sienna turned around when someone called out their name. The girl ran towards another girl, and Lily squinted to get a better view. She waved when she recognized the girl's mother. The pair approached, and Sienna and her old school friend Kia had matching rosy cheeks from running. Jane, how are you? Lily hugged a friend from the past. Great, so nice to see you. Are you moving back? No, just visiting. Well, that's a shame. Where will Sienna be going to high school next year? Kia is so excited to finish year 6. She's over it, Jane chuckled. We're not sure yet. Might still homeschool a bit longer. We haven't decided. Lily alternated from one foot to the other. Girls need their friends, especially in high school. I hope you'll find somewhere good, but you need to get a move on as places fill fast. Lily nodded, then glanced around. Well, it's a beautiful day, isn't it? She didn't like feeling pressured into anything she wasn't ready to make a decision about, especially not during a week like this. It is. We were just off for a walk, actually, along with walking track off Drifter's Lane. Did you want to join us? Can we, Mom? Sienna asked, her hands clasped together. Get her away from the screen for a while? Absolutely. We'd love to. Lily eyed her mother, who said hello to Jane, then gestured backwards. I might leave you girls to it and head back home. I need to pick up a few supplies from the store on the way, Joanna said. Oh, do you need a hand? Lily asked, but her mother shook her head. Go and enjoy some time out. I'll see you back at home. Okay, Mom. The two girls skipped ahead while Lily and Jane walked briskly. They reached the start of the walking track and Sienna rushed to the drinking fountain, taking a few gulps. Oh, I was so thirsty. Me too, echoed Kaya, drinking from the spurting stream. An imaginary bell dinged in Lily's mind. Always walk through life with a thirst for knowledge. She stepped closer to the bubbler, held down the button, and took a sip of water herself, then stepped back and ran her gaze down the metal stand. Attached to it with tape was a little plastic lunch bag. She crouched and peeled it off, taking out the piece of paper. What's that? Jane asked. Is it a love letter? Sienna asked, and the girls both wriggled their fingers and said, woohoo! It's a clue, Lily announced. I'm going a treasure hunt run by the bookstore, and I was stumped about how to find the next one, but there it is. She showed them the sequential clues and explained how she'd found the others. How exciting, Jane said. Can I have a look at the new clue? They all peered closer. Hope your thirst is satisfied. Why not take a nice walk now to think about your next and final clue? Every life is book-worthy, no matter how little or insignificant it may seem. Woman or man, we are all united as one human race, one family. Final clue? Lily reread the note. No idea sprung to mind. Beats me, Jane said. I'm terrible at quizzes and things. Lily tapped the note against her chin. Maybe the walk might spark something. It could. Let's go. Jane marched ahead with an eager momentum, her lean frame effortlessly moving forward up the walking track. Lily followed, and the girls ran ahead. Race you to the lookout, Sienna said. Lily smiled, the sadness from the reason they were back in town dissipating in that moment and feeling. If only for right now, that everything was what it should be. The sadness returned the next day, of course, Thursday, but with it, closure and gratitude that her grandma had lived a full life and left a meaningful legacy in her family. With a loving gesture, they tossed into the grave the last of the lilies, Grandma Katie's favorite flower that Lily was named after, and Mother Earth's supportive presence stood steady beneath them. Lily breathed in deeply, as though taking in the energy and life from below the connected with her feet, giving her a sense of comfort. Everything will be okay. She held Sienna close to her side as her daughter sniffed, having sobbed moments before. I know, she whispered. Her own mother joined her at her other side, sliding her arm around Lily's back, and her sister joined them too. 4 women, 1 family, together in one of life's most difficult but unavoidable situations. Life would go on, and she would make the most of it, like that old lady had urged. She had come to the service also, accompanied by one of her loved ones. They returned to Joanna's house for a quiet afternoon tea in honor of Katie, with a few close friends and relatives, and after the visitors had left, Emma busied herself cleaning the kitchen while Joanna took a nap. Sienna sobbed once more, and Lily lay with her daughter on one of the beds, wrapped in each other for comfort. Would you like a cup of tea? Emma asked as Lily and Joanna huddled on the couch watching a classic movie late the following afternoon. No thanks, Lily replied. Why don't you have a rest too? You haven't stopped. Emma sat on the edge of the armchair, scratched her head, adjusted the cushion behind her, and then scratched her head again. It appeared she was always forgetting something she had to do, but never knew what. And Lily knew it was just the way her sister coped with things. I'll go check on Sienna. Emma headed down the hallway. A moment later she returned. She said she wants to be on her own for a while. I think she's drawing a picture or something. Okay, thanks, Emma said. Her daughter had been keeping quiet most of the day and didn't even want to watch anything on TV. It was a lot to cope with at her age. After an early dinner of pizza, which Sienna ate quickly, then retreated to the bedroom again, Lily had a shower and got into her pajamas. She popped her phone into her bag and found the treasure hunt papers, having forgotten about them since yesterday. She read the final clue again, but still had no idea where to look or what it meant. Maybe she could ask Bradley for a hint. Nah, she couldn't surrender to defeat, but she could simply say she ran out of time and hand the clues over to Emma to continue next week on her behalf. Maybe it would give her sister something interesting to do. She popped the papers back in her bag and lay on the couch, not really paying attention to what was on TV. Her mother, with glasses propped on the tip of her nose, busy doing a crossword puzzle, and Emma doing some serious typing on her phone. She thought about Sienna and what Jane had said about girls needing their friends, how happy her daughter had been to see her old friend, and how she really needed to make some decisions soon about Sienna's schooling. She could continue homeschooling, of course, and Sienna was an easy student, often teaching her mother a thing or two, but how long could they go on traveling? Maybe she could start fresh, sell the fancy caravan she'd used her divorce settlement to purchase, and rent a small townhouse by the beach down south where there were several high schools to choose from. It would only be a couple of hours from Seekers Hill, so they could still visit. She could still run her business from home, maybe even pick up a part-time job locally as well. Start somewhere new from scratch and maybe make new friends for herself. She hadn't even had a chance to catch up with everyone she knew in town and hadn't been up to much socializing anyway, but she did know the importance of friendships in life. Anyway, perhaps she'd discuss some options with her mother tomorrow and start looking at rentals by the beach just in case. And of course, discuss with Sienna if she wanted to continue homeschooling and traveling, or if she wanted to settle down somewhere for the rest of her school years. Mom! Taken by surprise after her daughter's uncharacteristic quietness the past day or so, Lily bolted upright. Is everything okay? Sienna had a grin on her face. I did it! I finished! Finished what? Everyone asked in unison. My poem for Great-Grandma Katie, she beamed. Lily's hand flew to her heart. You wrote a poem for her? Sienna nodded. I found this. She held up the flyer Bradley had given her for the poetry night. Oh, I forgot. I meant to tell you about it. It was tonight and had completely slipped her mind too. I didn't get to say anything special at the funeral as I was too upset, but I wanted to. So I wrote it all down. Sweetheart. Lily stood and went to her daughter, arms outstretched. I'm so proud of you. Can I have a look? Sienna hid the paper behind her back. She teased. I'm going to read it out loud at the bookshop. We have to hurry and get there. Lily checked her watch. It started in 15 minutes. She looked down at her pajamas and fluffy slippers. I'll just wear these, shall I? No, Mom, get dressed, quick. Lily turned towards her family. I guess an evening out is on the cards. Care to join us? Emma stood first, already dressed and ready. Joanna put down her crossword and said, I wouldn't miss it. Let me grab my coat. And as quickly as she possibly could, Lily changed into a decent outfit that wasn't fluffy and didn't have pink cats on it, and they raced out the door, hopped in the car, and drove to town. Bradley's eyes brightened and a smile inched into his cheeks as they entered Little Treasures a few minutes late. Somebody already reading out their poem. One of the owners of the bookshop, who Lily recognized from the good old days, was also there, taking photos. She mouthed a sorry we're late and took a seat at the back. Some of the shelves had been moved aside to make a larger area, and once again the fireplace, the scent of old books, and the ambience of the store made her feel at home. They clapped when the poet finished, and they sat and listened to an array of other poems, including Bradley reading out a clever and heartfelt one of his own about memories. Does anyone else have anything poetic to share tonight? He asked. Lily cleared her throat, and Sienna stood, raising her hand. I do, she said. Bradley gestured for her to come forward and eyed Lily with an impressed rise of his eyebrows. Would you like to tell us your name and what your poem is about? I'm Sienna. My mom is sitting at the back, as well as my grandma and my auntie. Heads turned and the family gave a few little waves. I wrote a poem for my great-grandma Katie. She's not here anymore. We had to say goodbye yesterday, so I wanted to do something special for her. Sienna bit her lip for a moment and Lily's heart fluttered. She straightened the paper in her hands and cleared her throat. A long, long life, that's what she had. She was lucky, and I am glad. She gave me my grandma, who gave me my mom, and also my auntie, and we have lots of fun. My great-grandma Katie taught me many things, how to speak up for myself and be me as though I have wings. But now she will fly to the heavens above and leave behind a family with so much love. I'll miss her so much and the memories we shared, and I'll try to live a life like hers with people knowing I cared. And if she is watching over me, taking a peek, having a look, I'd like to say farewell and wish you could read me one more book. Sienna held her paper to her heart, closed her eyes for a moment, and Lily's chin wobbled. Thank you for listening, Sienna said, and before she could come back and take her seat as the audience clapped and sniffed, Lily dashed up to the front and embraced her daughter, tears of pride and joy building at the corners of her eyes. What an amazing, beautiful poem. Thank you so much, Sienna, Bradley said, followed by a few words to conclude the formalities of the evening and inviting everyone to stay and enjoy a cuppa and a chat. But Lily was still hugging her daughter, with tears in her eyes and thinking how much she had grown. She wasn't her little girl anymore, she was a little woman. And she was right. Katie had given them the gift of family, and the love they shared would never die. She finally pulled back and straightened up, wiping her eyes. If her life was a book, this would be a pivotal scene. Her mouth gaped open. Every life is book-worthy, no matter how little or insignificant it may seem. Woman or man, we are all united as one human race, one family. She recalled the clue. No matter how little. Woman, one family, little woman. Give me 1 sec. Lily went to the old books section and quickly scanned the shelves. Could it be? She glanced up and to the left, following the alphabetic order of author surnames. And then she saw it nestled snug in its home on the shelf, the old spine slightly wrinkled, one of her grandma's favorite books, Little Women. With reverence, she pulled the vintage hardback slowly out from between the other books and smiled at the cover, bringing back memories of when her grandma was about to read it to her as a child for the first time. It also had a not for sale sticker on it, which was a shame, but it didn't matter. She just hoped she had solved the clue correctly, and inside would be. She eased open the book. A red envelope with gold decorative border was attached to the inside of the cover. She opened the flap and pulled out the paper. It read, "Congratulations! If you found this as part of a series of clues, you have completed the Little Treasures treasure hunt. Take this letter to a staff member along with the other clues you collected to receive your prize." Her heart soared, not so much at completing the challenge, but at the fact that somehow, serendipitously, it had led her to this, a little treasure that meant something to her grandma and to herself, as though it was a sign she was indeed watching over them. She hadn't noticed that Bradley had sidled up next to her until she sensed a hint of warm spice from his aftershave. "I knew you could do it," he said. "Let me give you your gift." He disappeared out the back, and Lily showed Sienna and her family the letter. "The final clue, I got it. Thanks to your poem, Sienna." "But how?" the girl asked. "It all clicked together somehow. I'll explain later. Right now, let's enjoy the wonder and magic of this beautiful evening." The family embraced until Sienna broke away and looked towards Bradley. "What is it?" she asked, eyeing the wrapped gift. Bradley glanced at Lily as though to ask if it was okay to give to Sienna. She nodded. And there's time to open our gift. And marked in yellow that goes along with the gift, it says, Sienna accepted the gift and carefully slid her finger under the wrapping paper, opening it up to reveal a small cardboard package and inside a coaster set. But not just any coaster set. It had the book cover of Little Women on each one. Oh, wow, it's like the book you're holding, Mom. Yeah, I expected a coaster because of the size, and it looks like it's like papery cork in there. Let's hope it's a quality one. Okay. I mean, it's not just paper, which is good. It has like this cork base. The print is very dark. It feels okay. I have a few prints that I've received in book boxes of similar quality, but the print is just eh. Let's finish the story. We have 3 more pages to go. How beautiful. What a special little treasure indeed. Thank you so much. She lightly touched Bradley's arm. It's my pleasure. He touched hers back, and he gestured to the book in her hand. May I? She handed it to him, and he peeled off the sticker on the front. Oh, is it for sale now? Lily asked. No, he replied. It belongs to you. He handed it back, or perhaps to you. He smiled at Sienna. Lily thanked him again, the empty space in her heart filling up with love for her family, but also something else she couldn't quite understand. Whatever it was nice, and like she had as a child, she felt there was something magical about this place. Grandma, Sienna exclaimed, handing the gift to Joanna. You should keep the coasters. Yours are a bit old. Oh, love, you don't have to do that. You and your mom found the gift. It's yours. No, I insist. Sienna placed it in her grandmother's hands. Joanna chuckled, held them a moment, then took one coaster and handed it to Emma, then another to Lily and one to Sienna. Well, I insist that we each have one, to remember Katie and to connect us always. Sienna softened and held the coaster to her heart. Okay, that's an even better idea. She looked up at Lily. Mom, can we go home and watch TV? Sure. Sienna laughed. No, read a book. I would absolutely love to, my little woman. They held hands and said goodbye to Bradley and the other guests and went back to the family home to begin a new chapter and a brand new story. Sunday morning. Where are you going, Mom? The road out isn't this way. Sienna peered back out at the way they should have been traveling after they'd had goodbye hugs with Joanna and had waved another goodbye to Emma at the corner of Petal and Main while she went for her Sunday jog. I just want one last drive down Main Street to help me decide. Decide what? I'll talk to you about it when we stop for lunch, sweetie. Okie dokie, I guess. Lily admired the town's shops, and as she went slowly past Little Treasures, she paused, glad no other car was behind her. Maybe she should say one more goodbye to Bradley, exchange details so they could keep in touch. She twisted her lips to one side in uncertainty, then a sign on the window caught her eye. It hadn't been there before. She squinted. Oh, she gasped. Hang on. Lily steered the car and caravan around the corner where she could grab double parking spot. She hopped out and walked around the bookshop window. Business for sale. Inquire within. Her heart tingled and mind buzzed. Thoughts jumped around like shooting stars, just as they had done when she first arrived back in town. Only this time, not with memories from the past, but excitement for the future. She pulled out her phone. Can you meet us at Little Treasures? There's something really important I want to discuss with you. She popped the phone back in her bag and took hold of her daughter's hands. Sienna, how would you feel about moving back here? Going to school, starting over? Her daughter's mouth opened wide like a big letter. Oh, really? I mean, I love our adventures and you're like the best teacher ever, even though you're my mom and our cabin is comfy and all that, but Lily grinned. The decision is yours, my dear. If you want to move back, we move back. If you want to go, we go. I want you to have the youth that's best for you, wherever that may be. Sienna covered her eyes as though the decision was overwhelming, but then clasped her hands together. Kia was talking to me about her drama classes and I'd really love to try them too. And it's my birthday soon and I'd love to have a party at Grandma's, and although I love not being at school, I kind of want to try out the high school. Lily took a deep breath. Then it's settled. What settled? Emma arrived, huffing and puffing. Lily gestured to the sign. I think I found our new business. Emma held onto the window frame for support as though she couldn't believe her ears. You're going to move back? And you want to resume our business plans we dreamed of? Lily nodded. What do you think? Maybe Grandma Katie wanted to lead us here to this? If the sign hadn't been put up today, I wouldn't have seen it. I'm learning to believe in fate. Emma grasped her chin between her thumb and forefinger and her brow furrowed, and then she glanced all around the exterior of the shop. Do you really think we can do this? I know we can. Wow, Mom, are we really gonna buy the best shop in the entire universe? Sienna jiggled on the spot. If you're ready to say goodbye to our caravan? Her mouth opened as if to object, but then she clammed it shut. Okay, she stood straight. I'm ready. Let's do this, Emma said, hooking her arm around her sister's elbow and exhaling for what seemed like the first time all week. Lily giggled with excitement and pushed open the door to the future that could become an even greater treasure than she imagined. The end. All right, this was a long one. And me sneezing in the middle of it did not make it easier for me to read it. Anyways, this was a cute little story. I did like the writing style of the story. I felt in the middle of it that this was going to be in a romancy way, and I'm very glad it didn't turn out that way. It was a little bit predictable, I think, but still nice. Cute story. Meh about the gift, but overall I enjoy this book, so I don't care if one of the gifts is not 100% for me. This is it for today. I hope you liked the story. Let me know in the comments how you felt about the story, how you feel about the gift, if you think the box is worth it. And I hope to see you next week for day number, is it 9, 10? Until then, bye.
Just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together? If I could stop the time, don't you know?